Welcome everyone to our low-code, no-code Devtoberfest session on enterprise automation. It's a very big topic for SAP Build and certainly will be talked about from now till TechEd, at TechEd, and long beyond that. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you to join the Devtoberfest group. This lets you be eligible for the Devtoberfest contest, including the grand prize, which is an all-expense-paid trip to California, to the SAP offices, and to a very special amusement park. I will leave a link in the chat and the description on the sign-up page, as well as our really cool retro game board, which lets you follow how many points you have and what level you've attained. And to earn points for today's session, I'll also leave a link to a tutorial quiz about what you hear about today. So let's get started. Welcome to Thomas and Evgeny.
Thank you, Daniel. Hi, Evgeny. Yeah, let's get started. Enterprise automation. Okay, whatever. What is this now? Good. So, why do we talk about enterprise automation? So I think we all started pretty much a couple of years ago with workflow automation, robotic process automation. We brought it to the level of a citizen developer, so citizen automation. But what we found out, if we talk to customers and developers, is, hey, we have invested a lot in multiple automation initiatives, and we have islands of automation that are disjointed. They're not driving the full impact. And enterprise automation, bringing together the best of integration and also process mining and process analytics with citizen development is addressing what we call as enterprise automation. That means, you don't need to start with integrating your applications. You can also start with, at first, discover inefficiencies in end-to-end processes and figure out where are automation needs, and then you can integrate applications. But you can also start wherever you want. You start at the process or at the integration level. Now, we all know integration is everything around connecting applications with pre-built integrations in the business context. We enable real-time automation with business events and the advanced event mesh, and basically try to connect customers, employees, and partners. And next is, of course, automation. Automation simplifies how you build a unified end-to-end process automation with workflows, robotic process automations for task automation, business rules, low-code apps, and business sites, with SAP Build. Now here, next to forms and actions for integrations, you also want to include business events that come from the applications. Now, on the next level of how you can improve continuously, either you start with it or you basically measure your results of integration and automation continuously, or you get new kind of recommendations. You have a complete solution for process mining and analytics and modeling at your hand, where you identify inefficiencies in end-to-end processes and then can act on these insights with recommendations for further automations or integrations. Right now, if we look at, and that's super important, and I will show you also a little bit around content. So SAP comes with a huge plethora of integration flows, APIs, business events, and we all know that the Business Accelerator Hub, which is the new name that was chosen for the API Business Hub, because it's not any longer about APIs, but more about how can you accelerate your business transformation with content. We have the SAP Business Accelerator Hub. And within there, we focused a lot now in the last couple of years on providing end-to-end content, end-to-end process automation content that we have released already in the Build content catalog, which soon will also be part of the Business Accelerator Hub. And let me start there showing you around. So and that's specifically, how do you accelerate with these content packages your end-to-end enterprise automation? So you can go and choose process and business process. These are the the next level or the new generation of content packages. We also have, of course, all the RPA bot templates there and the workflow content in there. So overall, more than 350 content packages. And in the recent updates on these content packages, you see a lot of packages where you have, in this case, more than 30 bots, templates, automations in such a content package. We ship also data types at your fingertips, decisions, which are business rules, forms, which means process UIs, and end-to-end processes. And this comes at your fingertips. You can download or import them into your studio. And let me show you how that works, because this is the public side where you can just get all the information, what's in there, which kind of process templates do we ship as SAP. Now, if you go into SAP Build, the lobby, you have them here under Store, and you find basically the same kind of experience. You choose, for instance, that you want to kickstart your project with a business process package here. And let me choose this kind of mass maintenance of billing blocks in sales orders. If I go in there, you find also the description, the documentation. You see that we ship here 23 artifacts. Also, out of the box kind of configurations for SDKs that are used and so on and so forth. So you don't need to worry about that. And if you look at the artifacts, we see, couple of bot templates that we ship, data types, again, decisions, forms, and a process. And if I just go there and say I create this from the template, you get also a short description suggested. You can, of course, override that to your needs. And then you click on create. All of these artifacts in one business package are actually imported into your lobby of SAP Build. And that usually takes something like 30 seconds or so. And of course, the value that you have is then as soon as this content package is imported, you can change it to your needs. It's a template, an accelerator, and you see here all of this has now been imported. You get an overview of all of these artifacts in there. You can start with the process or look at all of the automations or the decision tables. Of course, the process is basically combining all of these artifacts into one consistent end-to-end process automation. So here we have an API trigger. That API trigger is pre-configured for you, also with the relevant data types that come out of the box here. And then a decision, a gateway here. This is in parallel happening, 2 business rules so that you can determine the approver or determine the process notifications and so on and so forth. And then you have here a bot. And in this bot, actually, we loop over a sales order, billing block, and all of this is coming out of the box. So you don't need to worry about the initial kind of setup. And in fact, I must say that recently, when we are in customer situations where we have a design workshop and we say, what's your business problem? We can dramatically accelerate, of course, the work in Fusion teams of citizen developers and professional developers, and saying, here is already, a content package that addresses your problem, and then you can add to it or change it. Something that I want to highlight, because we talk about enterprise automation, is, how do we work with the Business Accelerator Hub? How do we identify APIs that can be useful for an end-to-end process automation? And you probably know that in SAP Build, you can go and start building an application with SAP Build Apps or build an automated process. And here you have at your fingertips the action editor, where you can basically search for APIs. And we used to have, in the very beginning of SAP Build, only this capability to upload an API specification, an open API file or an OData specification file, and that's still there, right? Of course, if you build your own application, and you have a third-party API, and you can still upload this API specification. But what I am really very excited about is that we have now a native integration here with the Business Accelerator Hub, and of course also added recently SAP Graph into this, where you can connect to an SAP Graph instance. We will also be adding other kind of integration services, like native access to your iFlows that you have been building, or in the future also CAP models and so on and so forth. But let's look at the Business Accelerator Hub, and here you quickly can go and search for what are all the APIs that are exposed on S/4HANA. And for instance, let's just look for something for purchase order. And then you basically can choose, okay, this is the, the purchase order OData APIs that I want to choose. And then it basically looks at all the API methods, post, get, patch, delete, and so on and so forth for related to purchase orders. And it's quite rich, a rich set of API methods. And then you click next. And again, you can just give your project a name. You have a description, that comes out of the box here. And then, you use this set of APIs there to basically then configure what we call as an action in a process, the integration into the applications. For instance, whatever, I just randomly, click on get post here. And then you can start configuring this action to your needs. You, for instance, say, you don't need the work breakdown structure element. You can basically hide it from the action here. You remove the parameters. You can, don't need to worry. You can do that, add these parameters again to in a later point in time. And then you do the same also, of course, for the output. Let me quickly show you how that works. And then you basically can connect this to a destination that you have in your landscape, and then you can test it. And then, and this is super important because you can test that action before you actually deploy the full end-to-end process. In the very beginning, if you used actions, you had to basically release and deploy an end-to-end process automation to basically go and test the action. That was not really a good idea. So this we changed. So we basically save it, and then you can release it with a couple of clicks, give it a summary. And once you have released this action project, you can use these API calls as actions in an end-to-end business process. Now, let me go back and show you additionally something, because I'm not, showing one end-to-end demo, but show you around, because I'm super excited about a couple of new things in enterprise automation that we released. So here I have built actually an end-to-end process automation project with a pretty comprehensive structure. So you have a main process that is modularized. That's a good sign that this is a live demo. Session, I think, issue here that we have. Okay, we're good to go. So here in this end-to-end process, we basically, modularized this pretty complex process into multiple sub-processes. You see here, embedded or referenced. So embedded means that you do not need an API trigger for the sub-process. You can, embed it in an end-to-end main process. Reference means that, you can still create an API trigger for that sub-process, so you can use it in from multiple processes. But let me start maybe here with the trigger. And that, here you also always could add a form as a trigger. And we've done that here with a table for purchase request form, where you can have multiple kind of line items for that purchase request form, a material, and so on and so forth. But of course, you can also add now not only API triggers, but also business event triggers. And let me show you a little bit how that works. If I go into the overview here, I can, by the way, now import also a UI5 component as an application. This is very helpful in projects where you say, well, this simple form that you have seen is not, fulfilling your requirements, but you want an existing UI5 component, or you want to build actually in the Fusion team a UI with UI5. Well, you can now use these UI5 applications also as task UIs in your end-to-end process. Very helpful. But if I now want to show you API and business event triggers, let me just create a new process here. And here you see that we have now added next to forms and APIs, the notion of events. So you can basically say, I want to create a new event trigger. And then say for instance, you go for events for purchase order change. And you go and choose the event object. And let's look at where the purchase order is. Process order, it's not here, purchase order events, and pick actually which event, on which event you want to trigger a process. These events, or what do we use? We use the event mesh here. So you need to configure your event mesh and add actually the S4 events in there, and configure that as kind of like the middleware in between. And once you have done that, you basically see that, for instance, if a purchase order is changed, you want to trigger the process. And that is as simple as that. Even a citizen developer, without the help of a pro developer can do that. But of course, Fusion team development means you work together with a professional developer, maybe configuring all the event signatures and so on through event mesh. And then what you see is that basically the signature of this event is available. And if I go and start now creating the process, and the easiest way how to demonstrate that is that I show you this here. So, all of the or the data type for the event or of the event signature is now available in your process context, defining also the process context. The same method is available if you, let me just delete this now. Very simple way how you can create a new API trigger. You basically click on the canvas, and then here you can, let me do something really nasty. I delete the event signature of the API, of the business event, and here you can create actually your event signature. And of course, if we have already a purchase requisition data type, you can simply choose out of, the list of artifacts that are created in this project, the purchase requisition data type, and then hit apply. And then you see the event signature has been created. Now this is, pretty exciting because we have added to simple forms, APIs, and business events now. And this is, of course, in combination or integrating from SAP Build Process Automation with the integration suite and all of its content. Good. Now, what I wanted to talk very quickly about before I hand over to Evgeny is AI. AI is, and specifically generative AI and large language models is on top of the list of many discussions nowadays. And we have, a story for using embedded AI services in SAP Build Process Automation for quite a while. So, probably that we are using our own document information extraction business service for, intelligent extraction of data from documents. And also the recommendation service as a business AI service is available from SAP. But nowadays, what we're working on is, of course, the next step, and you will hear more about this at TechEd this year, that we're using actually generative AI and large language models to generate not only recommendations, which is very helpful for instance, hey, I have a business problem and to fixing mass maintenance of blocked sales orders or invoice without purchase order. And here's a content package from SAP with a ready-to-use out-of-the-box template. That's a recommendation. But how about generating flow step suggestions? So generating end-to-end process models with a natural language support, including also business rules. That is what we're working on, and we will be ready at TechEd to share more with you about that. And we're working, of course, with a lot of partners. And Vision AI, I just mentioned. So we have a fantastic partnership with Google, not only integrating to the Google Workspace with Google Workspace SDKs, but also enabling handwriting recognition with Google Vision AI. We're working also with Microsoft together, not only on the SDK for Microsoft Office 365, but also bringing Microsoft automations into an end-to-end process, because that's what it's about. We're looking at the ecosystem also, not only about pre-built content, but also how do we, if for instance, a customer says, we have already a Microsoft Power Automate process, how do we integrate this into an end-to-end process? If you have a Google Vision AI scenario, then it comes out of the box actually with this partnership that we have. Overall, kind of the overall picture is also integrating third-party or ecosystem bot automations into an end-to-end process, the same way that we, in an end-to-end process can use bots and business rules and so on and so forth. Yeah, this is something that is on top of our mind. And you see the end-to-end picture, of course, is very important here, because we can also get recommendations from SAP Signavio, for instance, on process intelligence to see where is an automation need and how can I do this in an end-to-end process, integrating also with the integration suite, capabilities. To show you that and show you a little bit around, I would like to hand over now to Evgeny.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Thomas, and thanks for the great examples. I think it already is very exciting to see all this coming together with event-based, event-driven architectures and related items. So with that, let me maybe take over the screen sharing and let us look into the specific customer scenarios, which we already are familiar with and which we're working on, and which you also might find relevant for your organizations, and for your specific tasks. So as you can imagine, we are, of course, able to cover different areas of business, different industries, but let me highlight a few more common, so to say, use cases now, right? So when we talk about HR-related processes, we can straight away think of the employee onboarding experience, right? So all of us, or most of us, have been hired to different companies, and then during this hiring process, we need to be assigned to the certain compliance trainings. We need to purchase equipment, so say the laptop to work on, and then we need to also be entered into the different internal systems to have a user, say, in the payroll and etc. And this process should be orchestrated. This process should be also well understood, and we need to see where it can be improved. And then we also need integration to different systems. Yeah, now let's talk about the finance area. And in the finance area, you can straight away also think of different financial documents, such as journal entry posting data or invoices. Yeah, and we can streamline and orchestrate the process of posting the data into S/4HANA system, while also supporting the integration with additional systems, while also, again, understanding the improvement potential behind it and finding another bottlenecks where we can improve the overall process here. Yeah, and then we can look also at the other areas, like, sales areas, where we can work on the sales orders management, on the sales order credit limit updates whenever that is required. And basically, again, we're talking about streamlining the whole sales related process around our core system. Yep, there are also some industry specific use cases that you can see on the screen on the utilities example, when we can optimize electricity meter readings. And there is, of course, more to that, but let us maybe look into the technical details of one of the scenarios that is mentioned here. And that scenario is about enabling advanced onboarding experience and shared service automation. Yeah, and how do we bring our tools together here? Yeah, so we start with the SAP Signavio that allows us to understand the processes that are happening within our SuccessFactors system in this case. Yeah, and then identify the bottlenecks. Yeah, so basically we mine the onboarding process, and then we in Signavio can build the process diagram using the process manager, and then we can measure the user satisfaction rate on the different steps within this process. And then for the steps, say when we don't have the sufficient user satisfaction, so we see that basically we have some issues there. We can mine it, and we can apply process intelligence here, and then using the process intelligence, we can understand where are the bottlenecks, where are the inefficiencies, and based on that, we can decide what we want to automate. So it is always insight-driven architecture. And then after, in this case, so we identify the areas for improvement, then we created several automations. We'll talk about that later in the demo part. But then what will happen is that after we create the new employee in SuccessFactors, it would not be a manual work anymore, because thanks to Integration Suite, we can listen to the events happening in SuccessFactors. So the event that the new employee has been created in the system. After this, we are able to basically trigger the build process automation flow automatically, fully independently from the user, and then go through this orchestration for the equipment ordering and user creation in the internal systems. So let's see how it looks in the system demo, right? And with that, we jump onto it. And as I said, we start with Signavio. So with Signavio, we can analyze what's going on in the system. We can look into the process discovery diagram, and then we can look at all the steps that we take. We can look at the conformance diagram as well with variants, and then you can see what's going on with each and every step of the process that we take. So like training assignment, equipment approval, grant system access, setup of the laptop, and additional assignments of authorizations, etc. And then we see that the cycle time is way higher than it should be. And then based on this, we decide to make an improvement. So we decide to create an onboarding workflow. So a workflow orchestrating the onboarding process with several automations on the way. And what will happen is that after we will enter the new employee data. So in this case, we enter that Jane Smith, the new hire, has been basically approved, and then the personal information of this person is entered into the system. So what will happen in the background after this data would be entered is that we are actually able to react to the fact of this creation thanks to the event listening capabilities of Event Mesh, or also Advanced Event Mesh, that we're using in this case. And we define, say, the broker. So in the Advanced Event Mesh that we're using now, we are defining basically the broker, and then in the broker, we're able to define the queues. So basically to which the different events from different systems can fall into. And then you can see that we go to the queues section, and then in the queues section, we have different queues. And then we have also the section dedicated specifically to the new hire workflow events. So we basically set all the events here, and then we subscribe to them, and basically we listen to the fact of the new employee creation thanks to this. And after this event told us, hey, there is a new employee created, we are actually able to trigger the process automation flow, and then in this process automation flow, we will orchestrate and define all the steps, as you can see, in a visual format of what we will do, right? So that there is an approval form to order the equipment and assign the trainings. The form is defined here directly in the form builder, and then you can say that I want to have the text field, I want to have it as a read-only field, I want to have a table view, and here you can also feed the data from the backend system, say to the drop-down list. You can also create fields with the ability to enter the data for the manager, say to provide the comments or the approval. And then you can also support it with a decision table. Yeah, and with the decision, you define who is the right approver for different type of request for different type of equipment. Yeah, depending, say, on the amount or the country, etc. And then this is how the form looks at the runtime, at the approval phase. And then you can see it can be very extensive as well. And the manager can review it all and then provide certain comments that we define as an editable fields and click on approve or reject. So this is what we can do. Yeah, and after we basically prove it, what will happen is that through the actions projects, directly through the API in the background, we will have the posting of the data to Ariba. And if we go to Ariba later to check how is it going, we will see that there is a new PR posted for the new equipment purchasing for Jane Smith. And then we basically expect this to be created, and to receive our equipment soon. Next step, we are also posting the data to the Service Cloud to request the needed authorization for the user. So if you open the tickets section, you can see that there is a system authorization for the new hire already created. And again, that happens through the actions project, and you don't need some human interference in order to create it, and then you can see that the access has been requested. So now, if we look at this from another angle, we can also talk about the use case of how to streamline our sales orders limits. So for the sales orders, we might have the credit limits defined, right? So, when we implement the system, we can use the settings in order to limit the amount of for the sales orders that can be created, say, on a daily basis. And whenever we want to increase this limit, we need to go for the certain approval step, right? And that is actually something that can be faced periodically by many companies. And that is something that we faced as well. And that's why this use case makes a lot of sense, right? Because again, we can combine here Signavio and build process automation in context of S4. And with Signavio, we can get, again, quick insights into the process. So we can analyze what's going on using the process insights tool. And then we can receive certain recommendations already. And then we can go to the deeper level with process intelligence to really find the specific first and highest priority improvement that you should make. After this, we are able to acquire the pre-built content package, because in this case, and you saw this already during Thomas's presentation, that there is a lot of content being available. And so it's more than 340 packages as of now. And one of them actually feeds into the story and feeds for the credit limits update for the sales orders. So there is a special package for that. And then we can extend it, and then we can execute it, right? And in addition to that, we can also optionally add integration suite whenever that is needed, say for some third-party systems integration or for some additional data transformation that you might want to do. But it's not actually part of this scenario as of now. But of course, it can be there. And if you see the benefit for this to be there, we can also use it there for the iFlows, for the API management, for the third-party system integrations. In this case, the target would be that the credit limit is increased in the S/4HANA system. So if we look at this in the system view, right? So we start with process insights, and then process insights is a lightweight tool allowing us to get the same day insights on our major typical process flows. So it has a lot of process flows already available with the system. And then once we connect it with our S4 or ECC, we're able to see this, right? So then we look into the lead to cash process specifically, and then for the billing documents creation process flow within the lead to cash process type. And there we see the most frequent blockers. And then we can see that a lot of documents have been created by dialog user during the billing run. And the system actually recommends us to use the set of innovation recommendations. And then we see that we have 16 recommendations, which is a very good number, but that's why we also want to narrow it down with the process intelligence. And one of the packages that is being recommended is to manage credit block on the sales order. Yeah. And if we look at it further, so then we go to the process intelligence to really understand what should be our first priority improvement, so to say. Yeah, then we go into the order to cash investigation. We'll look into, again, the process discovery to go through the steps, to see the deviation from the processes, to see the case count. And then we basically define that we should go ahead for the managed credit block on sales order content package that is available in the system, in the store. Yeah, that is available as a pre-built content in the store to be used in the system. Yeah, so there is this managed credit block on sales order package that we can acquire and that we can use. And if we acquire it and we then want to adjust it, right, we can do it using this process editor in the build process automation, right? And then you can see that this is, again, what you already saw in the previous demo, how it can look like, right? And then at the runtime, you will have, again, the form for approval. And what's important is that this approval can be triggered directly from Signavio Process Intelligence, because there is also the direct integration available. And that is something that we call action trigger, or just action as well. Yeah, so on the process intelligence side, you can identify and define a set of cases when you want to trigger the approval flow automatically. Yeah, and this way you can actually start the build process automation approval directly from the process intelligence, again, without starting it manually somehow by the user. Yeah, and then you will see that the order is posted into the system. Yeah, and the credit limits update is posted into the system. Yeah, so then we see that the overall block status is not blocked as of now. Yeah, and we increase the credit limit, and then we can post more sales orders to the system right now. And again, that is something that is possible thanks to the direct integration in between Signavio Process Intelligence and Build's process automation in this case. And with that, I'd like to pass it back to Thomas to go through the main touch points, existing and plans, through the main integration points that we have in the solutions. Yeah, and if I go to the next slide, Thomas, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Evgeny. Great summary. I think that if you look at it, and Evgeny just mentioned it again, we have existing direct integration between SAP Signavio and SAP Build. SAP Signavio and SAP Integration Suite, by the way, works on the same kind of level. You can also directly, in SAP Signavio, configure an action to invoke via, a process automation and integration flow. And we are working on bringing this, of course, closer together from a life cycle perspective. And I hear a lot of questions at times: is this one life cycle? Can I, transport an end-to-end enterprise automation scenario across Signavio, SAP Build, and Integration Suite? No, that's not the case. We, loosely couple actually these projects right now. But we're working on the level of automation and integration, of course. If you think about it, well, we have a high usage of out-of-the-box business events from S4, specifically in S4. We will be adding also in our roadmap non-SAP business event into the event mesh, so into the integration suite. That is basically, together with the used APIs for actions in automations, very close to the life cycle of an end-to-end process, and we're working on bringing this also closer together. And specifically when it comes to embedded AI in SAP Build and Integration Suite, this will be fairly interesting to see, okay, there's a digital assistant on Integration Suite, a digital assistant, on the Pro Code side of the house of BTP, and a digital assistant on SAP Build in the future, that we're bringing these artifacts there even closer together. But on the artifact level, it is already a common content catalog that I highly recommend that you look at the Business Accelerator Hub evolution there to bring these kind of artifacts also closer together. Good. Next slide. To summarize maybe, or not summarize, but to basically look at what are the enterprise automation themes or roadmap themes that we're working on. You have all of these topics in here. Of course, we'll be working on having a more seamless flow between process intelligence and end-to-end improvements. Tool flow. Content is already quite nice. And also, you have lookup APIs in Signavio to look up, where are the automation projects that I have already developed. But tool flow, we are looking at this. Embedded AI is mentioned here, not only on approval recommendations, but also what I mentioned before, using large language models. And on the integration side of the house, so integration automation across SAP and non-SAP, that is a focus topic for us. I told you already that we're working on also exposing integration flows, not only calling integration flows, because you can do that already today via actions, but also directly exposing integration flows into the action editor so that you can configure actions using integration flows pretty easily. The same is true, of course, for business event discovery. I think we have only started to see now how important that is of not only exposing business events through event mesh, but also make them discoverable. And we have a pretty rich set of business events from S/4HANA, and we're adding as SAP many to that catalog as well. Hybrid workflow extensibility is always what customers ask us. So how can we natively extend a workflow that has been built, for instance, in ABAP, or in the cloud, an existing workflow that I have running already? It's about discovery and orchestration also of any kind of workflow, be it in the ABAP, on the ABAP side of the house with the flexible workflow based on the ABAP workflow engine, and also existing workflows that you can orchestrate all of this together. And then maybe one highlight topic that I want to have, because in every discussion it comes up, governance mechanisms. We have already very good integration there with the transport management system, and you can define dev, test, prod landscapes and so on. But of course, we also specifically for authorizations on isolated data for a specific line of business, say, finance and HR, you want to basically isolate the data, and we're working on a concept that is called environments. If you go back, for that will also be helpful for more specific governance mechanisms that you can isolate data and transport them. That's, I would say, the summary. All of the other topics, of course, unified store, all of the content, by the way, that you saw or see in our presentations. And if you go to the content catalog, is for free. It comes, not with a price tag on it, but we enable already also our partners to build content and position this content also, and also applications, in the SAP store. But all the content that comes from SAP is basically for free, in the sense of we don't charge for this content, but of course it requires a license. That's basically the summary of what we're looking at currently to further evolve the enterprise automation story. That's it from our side. Daniel, back to you.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Evgeny. Let me ask you a question, Thomas, real quick. When you talk about triggering a process based on rules or decisions, are those rules and decisions in Signavio that you're talking about, or somewhere else?
Yeah, Daniel, you can have different ways how you can trigger a process. Like I said, through either through a business event or via an application, via API. When we talk about rules and decisions, it's conditions that are defined on the Signavio side. That means that you have to basically, in Signavio, on a process mining project, define under which condition let me just call it a condition, and which condition shall actually an automation be started? Because you don't want to, for each and every blocked sales order, trigger a process automation project, but only on specific ones. These conditions are then defined on the Signavio side.
Very good. And when you talk about isolating data, are you talking about enabling certain destinations for certain people, or
Exactly.
or yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
we used to have a concept in robotic process automation that is called environments. So an environment can be defined based on a business, a line of business. Like, for instance, what customers did in the past is, hey, you need to isolate the data related to all the bots and all the processes for finance, like I just said, or HR, because they are very critical. Isolating this data into what we call as a container for deployment has to do with governance, but it also, for the lifecycle dev test prod is important. Yeah.
Okay. And this is my last question. In that feature to isolate destinations, is
Yes.
that a general BTP thing, or it's specific
using
to
BTP
process automation?
Yes, sorry, Daniel. we're using BTP destinations there. Yes.
Yeah, but the isolation, is it a feature within BTP, or is it a feature to isolate them within the process automation?
No, on SAP build level.
Mm-hmm. In build level.
SAP build
Okay.
level.
Very good.
Using BTP destinations. Yes.
Very good. Okay. Thank you so much, Thomas and Evgeny. I just want to remind everybody that we'll have a tutorial quiz, so you can earn points for the DevToberfest contest and the grand prize. And I will leave that link in the description as well as the chat. So thanks for attending. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.